So freedom is the key. And in the freedom, it's in that freedom that we can be creative, dig into our passions and light back up. And then how we come forward is so beautiful.
Welcome back to the Michael Edwards Show. I have an amazing guest today. Deirdre and I met through a beautiful mutual friend of ours, and we had this incredible conversation about spirituality and fitness and just all the things. And it seeded that conversation that we had, seeded so many thoughts and conversations. And I just knew I had to bring her on to share some of this wisdom and magic with you. And following you online actually as well has been so inspiring. I love your message around fitness. I love the way you show up. I love the way you lead. I love the energy that you invite people into. And so I'm so honored and thrilled to be welcoming you today. So welcome.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say, I just feel already welcomed immediately when I met you. I just felt like we need to click more, talk more, dive into things. And yeah, I'm excited to chat with you.
So good. So do you
Yeah.
want to just briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, I'm Deirdre Slattery, and I am a health and wellness coach. Majority of my clients are with women, but it's really based around body, mind, and soul and breaking through the limiting beliefs that we have around what fitness is and helping individuals thrive. So, however that looks, there's not a one size fits all, but I'm really in believing that we can set that light on fire inside of us again. Maybe it's been dimmed, and fitness can be one avenue. And that's probably where I would start with most people. My own personal journey led to this. So I started my fitness journey in a moment of need. And through that, it just ripple effect into helping others. And this is transformed into my business, my life, published author, published fitness model, and helping women see their best selves through the work.
Amazing. And that mind, body, soul piece, I think is what I feel such resonance with. And I know in my own journey, there's so many different ideologies out there, like dipping into different things and being like, oh, you're dropping the ball. And I think that was a big thing for me when I really launched my business and it was suddenly there were all of these needs of me and there were no like clear start and end days of the workday or whatever. It was like I dropped the ball with fitness and I made it such a low priority and I made it mean things about me. And I also didn't feel like it was that important in some ways. Like I was telling myself in this story of, oh, I'm sacrificing now and then I'll do that later. But it was interesting because when I really came back to frequency and just being so sensitive to my energy and how I was feeling and like really taking care of that as the number one priority, I immediately started taking care of my body again. And I just realized it really is our vessel. And if the body doesn't feel good, our ability to feel good and be our best selves.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm buzzing. So I'm feeling that grind, hustle, that mentality. It's when I started being an entrepreneur and just chipping away from that and breaking free of that hustling, doing more in the day and that sacrifice. There's so many things you just said in there to break down. And that hustle and the grind, how did it leave us? Burnt out, tired, not serving well to others, certainly not serving ourselves well. So work and I'm so busy was where I found myself. And then that's how I changed when I started working with women because I was recognizing it all around us. And it's just, yeah, we're dimming our light, building
Everywhere.
business, and we're falling apart inside. And that's just, it's not growing.
Yeah, everywhere. It's
And
everywhere. It's so predominant. Do you not find that energy also exists in the fitness industry though?
yes, it does. And I feel there's like an emergence, which I love seeing. Old school, no pain, no gain.
Yes.
Even though that motto was dropped, it still was like no rest days and fighting to have a rest day. And it's the same with our work mentality. They're like mirrors of each other. So it's as an entrepreneur, you don't turn off. I'm like, no, we need to turn off and turn inward, and we come out better.
That's it. That's how I used to be too. No rest
Yeah.
days. Like you gotta push, you gotta go every day and lift for an hour and a half. And then it was like, I wonder why we're burnt out all the time.
More pre-workout.
Yeah. More free workout. Tell us about that.
No, more pre-workout. It's
Oh,
like, how do
pre-workout.
you
Yeah.
physically do that? There's only so much. And then it's just like run, sprint, drop, and just be done for a moment. And then you have to pick yourself up again. So that sprinting and then being exhausted and sprinting and being exhausted and taking us out of that cycle.
Totally. How do you feel in this process where you're working with these women that have been stuck in this mentality and in the grind and are now like reconnecting and finding this new relationship with mind, body, spirit? Do you find that there's a really big component of that, of reconnecting to, let's call it the intuitive sense of our body?
The curiosity's there. And I feel that by opening that segue, I dip in there with my work and I organically just weaving that in and out and opening that up and sharing that we can be guides, we can be teachers, we can be facilitators, but all knowing is inside. So
Mhm.
that idea, we don't take rest days. Your body knows when it needs rest day if you can tune in. So
Yeah.
absolutely dipping into intuition, what is serving them best in their environment, in their day to day. And when that intuition's heightened, I love it because what I see, that's nothing to do with the direct working out and a meal plan, all these things that seem so protocol. They break free from their patterns. And that
Mhm.
usually means leaving job, taking a new course, and a lot of it loops back into a body, mind, soul connection. So they might be in a very business forefront, everything serious. And all of a sudden they're like, I'm off to a Reiki course. And they open up to this other side. And I do believe that's their intuition coming through and following new pathways, because the path that they took got them so far, but they can see, wow, this is not working for me anymore. And why am I on this path? Questioning it.
Totally. And I remember when we were speaking the first time and you were talking about some of these stories, I was like, oh, we basically do the same thing. You just do it through this fitness lens and I do it through this spiritual lens. People are arriving at this same place, which is themselves. And I ask about the intuitive piece because I had this experience a couple of years ago where I had, when I was in a very aligned place, I had intuitively found this like eating protocol that worked for me and intuitively gotten really into calisthenics, and I was doing it 3, 4 times a week. And I was like the fittest and the healthiest I'd ever been in my life. And I moved and I got out of that and I wanted to get started again. And I ended up hiring this online fitness coach that I found through the building that I lived in. And I talked to him and it was definitely good vibes and stuff. But then when we got on it, he put me on this meal plan and it was so carb intensive and I have all of these food allergies and sensitivities. And I was like, buddy, I just cannot eat this many carbs. And I had, because I used to have all these health problems. Like I had IBS, borderline Crohn's disease, and I had learned all these things about diet and cut them out. And a huge thing was like, I just didn't eat that many like grains and carbs. And he was like, no, like, that's not real. And we went back and forth a few times. He's like, you just need to do it. You just need to do it. You just need to do it. And I felt, because I spent all this money and I was like, I remember I actually embarrasses me to think about, but like my intuition was screaming at me that this was
Mm,
wrong for me, but I did it anyways. And I ended up getting a stomach ulcer and all of this like digestive stuff. And it threw me off for like a
yeah.
year at least. But I look back now and I'm like, my body and my intuition was screaming that this was like screaming at me. Like it could not have been any louder, but I did it anyways.
Ooh, yes. And that's where it comes down to, yes, sharpening our intuition. It's there, that voice and listening. So our body shows up for us and yeah, doing the work. I do not give specific meal regulations. That's just like, where's our autonomy in life and that intuition and knowing our body. So guidelines and fitting in what fits for your body. But yes, our body will show up. So I see injuries, stomach problems, skin irritations, and we're in things that aren't serving us. They aren't good for our bodies. We're not digesting them. So when you can listen to that, but yes, swallowing it and saying, okay, this guru knows it, but you need to know who you're aligned with. And if they're
Yeah,
aligning with you and listening to you, because how could one diet fit all?
totally. Can you talk to us more about your body shows up for you?
Yeah. Okay. Ooh, I love this. Up in here. If we're up in here all day long, breathing up here, thinking in here, how would we even feel our body? So
Right.
mood for my way of working, and you and I both are doing some work, but energetically bringing people through their body through movement. So I always recommend when you're training, whatever modality you like. If you want Pilates, you want weight training, you want this, but to get into your body and out of your head. So if we get into our body and even just becoming aware, so body awareness, that intelligence and being kinesthetic, we can heighten that and start feeling the sensations when we're moving, but also moving that energy. And I think that's where you and I can align, that we have stuck energy. We can feel so up here and so tense. And then when I go into a workout zone, I say that get into your body and release that tension, release those aches, release those pains. And you're helping your digestion, you can help your central nervous system, and the body will release some of that, those natural endorphins. That's going to make us feel good. It's simply, before we run to our next thing, sitting in it. So whether that's in the morning, putting your feet on the ground, you can jump up and you could run to that first thing in the morning, or you could actually place your feet on the ground for a moment, even just touching the ground, getting grounded and allowing that energy to come up through your body. And like, how's my body feel today? And there could be the beginning of your intuition of what does your body need? Does your body need to move in through a yoga flow? Do you need to get out and have a walk? Do you need a cold plunge? What do you need? And what does your body ask for? So if I feel achy, for example, it's like, this is a hot shower moment. I'm going to have a hot shower. If I feel stiff, it's like, maybe I'm going into a walk. So the first thing we could do in the morning is check in with our body. And
I love that. And I love that you link that to energy too, because it's funny, I'm an ex-dancer, and the more I learn about energy, the more I'm like, oh, in dance, that's one of the reasons I loved it. And people perceive me is because I was understanding like how to shift my energy through movement. And I think that's such a powerful thing for us to reconnect to. And I love what you're alluding to before as well, though, when you said your body shows up, is also with things like injuries and digestive stuff and skin stuff like that really is your body talking to you.
Yes. And yeah, what is the root cause? So if we can, again, and maybe we don't know, but seeking and aligning with people that could help you. So, okay, why is my skin breaking out over and over again? There's a reason. And intuitively, if you are connected, you might realize the pattern. Oh, it's when I'm eating this or I'm doing these things. The injuries, for sure, I think relate. I've had people that are going through major crisis in their life, like if it's a work change, a marriage change, relationship changes, then all of a sudden their back is out. It makes sense to me. Okay. The camel that broke your back, those
Your
things.
support, yeah. Yeah, it's so
Mm.
interesting. I almost made a connection while you were talking about that, because I've been doing this energy work training recently, and they really get us to focus on listening. They're like, the universe is trying to speak to you, listen. And really, that things that can seem really negative are actually often invitations for us to, yeah, like self-reflect or to rest or to whatever. And so when you said that, you said your body shows up for you, and then you're giving all these examples that actually we think of injury as being such a bad thing, but it's probably saying this is too much, you need rest, right? And when
I
we're
almost
stuck
have
in,
goosebumps because it's just
yeah,
it. It's like my clients, oh, I'm so frustrated, I'm hurt. And I'm like, it's time out. It's time for you to take a time out, and patience. And what do we learn through that? A sprained ankle, you can't train lower body, but what could you do? And it's like, what can we do? And what are we meant to do in this moment? So I always feel if we're not listening, you get are you listening? Oh, okay, I'm listening. And even in those moments, plowing through, there's the old school mentality of no pain gain. I'll work through it. I'll do all the, no, pause. What is the underlying message in this moment? Even if you've lost your job and you're at home, maybe it was because your kids needed you. Maybe it's because your partner needed a moment. Maybe it's because you just needed yourself. And in those time out periods, if we can gather what is that message, and if we listen into the universe, what is the next step for us, even if it's just a rest, but it could be a platform to catapult into something totally different.
Amazing. I love it so much. So good. I actually just had an aha moment while you were talking too. And it was just about something, because I was saying, if you don't listen, the thing will get louder. And there was something that I did last night, and then I felt frustrated this morning. And I realized it was that. It was like this person that is just, I'm falling out of resonance with, and I can feel it's not a match. And I know that, but there's a part of me that's maybe. And then I got an interaction back, and I felt frustrated. And as I was saying that, I was like, oh, that's what that is. It's going to get louder until you listen. That's why I'm frustrated because I'm not honoring. I know my intuition knows
Yes,
that this season is over and
it's
I'm
over.
keeping the door open and it's frustrating because it's like that's the
I've had this
message. When are you
conversation
gonna when are you gonna
too.
receive the message, Michael?
When the door like slams in your face, but we keep trying to open the door, keep the door open. And that's something I feel it's seeing the best in people, but also knowing when it's not aligning, letting go. I had a conversation with someone about this week, and why do we hang on sometimes when it doesn't feel right? Whatever
Yeah.
that is, a diet, you doing the carbs, it doesn't feel good, but I'm going to hang in there. Relationships, business relationships, but I feel like it could get back down to our ego. Like, why do we want to make this work so much? Release it, let it go. If it's meant for you, it's coming back.
Yeah, I love ego, and I feel like it's a trust thing too, because the truth is there's a part of us that always knows.
Mhm.
And it's like our need we're so programmed to be logical and to need things to make sense. And this is something I really work on in my world is really letting go of the need to like mentally interpret everything. And when you just have those hits and those knowings, to just honor them. And I think what happens is when we're in that like hustle grind paradigm that you're speaking about, that voice is so far away. It's this little mosquito whispering in the corner. But as we put more attention on it and we make more space in our life and live with more intentionality, it gets closer and louder and you can hear it. And I think it really takes courage and a conscious practice
Mhm.
of this happens and I listen, this happens and I listen. And I think I think you've done Danielle's program as well. And like that's the thing is like when we receive that, whatever you want to call it, can we move on it, develop that practice, our lives
Yeah.
change because that voice, that knowing we have in us is guiding us to our highest timeline, our best life, our best self, the best version of ourselves. But we like to bring in so much of our human fuckery.
Totally. Ah, if I
CEO.
can muck this up, I'll try. Like what?
Yeah, yeah.
Ooh, yeah, you're hitting. So if it's the listening, so a couple of things that you said there, I was thinking about. It's like you asked me about how's our body intuition. So again, if we're in our mind and thinking logically, trying to understand everything versus what does it actually feel in our core, whether you want to talk chakra, your core, just a full on body sensation. When you come up to something and someone, if that body sensation doesn't feel good, that's a signal and that's a sign.
Yeah,
And yet sometimes we keep coming into that and this doesn't feel good. Trust that. And again, the more we like sharpen that intuition and practice it,
yeah,
and less doing, oh my gosh, when you just said that, like we're receiving, if we open up our channels to hear, it's the voice is coming loud and clear and from far and wide if we just can open up that space.
yes. So good. And I think too, what was coming up for me as you're speaking is I've really been working on anchoring this in myself lately, is recognizing how all of that is in flux and to be okay with that. So I'll give the example of I have like right now in one of my programs, I have a 90-second handstand hold. And sometimes I can do it, and sometimes it's really a struggle. But then instead of going, it says 90 seconds on the thing, I have to do it, like actually recognizing like this is the max today, and just
Yeah.
working within that range
Yeah.
and letting that be in flux. And same thing with like productivity or just like our emotional resilience, going, this is the range that I have today. And so can I still be intentional and show up, but can I honor what
Mhm.
I'm working with today and not be frustrated with myself on Thursday because Thursday I'm running at 50%, whereas on Monday I was running at 120%.
Oh, yeah. All the feels for that. All the feels because I've been hearing a few limits from clients lately. And like I looked at the workout and it said 45 minutes and I only had 20, so I didn't do it.
Mm,
And I'm like, can you repeat that for me again?
yeah,
And like, you didn't see that what you can do 20 out of the 45 is a win. It's what you could offer today. So time is not a factor. We can make do with what we have. And then to showing up where you are and like our intensity and workflow for gym productivity in the business has to change. It's not the same every day. And giving ourselves, sorry, I didn't close my windows. That might have been
that's
some
fine.
back.
It's fine. We got AI to filter out all the background.
But just giving ourselves space and permission to be not a 10 out of 10 every day. Again, that we don't function the same every day. We need to arrive where we are and meet the demands of the day as best we can, whatever that looks like. Yeah, just I
I
loved everything you just said there. It's
I
like
know I'm
that's
just soaking that in too, and it's actually one of my
yeah.
values too. Is I call it natural harmony. Is like living in harmony with nature, with our body, with the natural cycles of life. So this is I'm getting these like warm, gooey vibes
Yes.
as we're talking.
I got so warm when you said that. And I'm like, you're making me think here in Miami, in Canada, and the leaves are changing. We can't be on shining bright sun all the time. What does that look like? And we talked again about the burnout, listening to our bodies. We need time to retreat. We need time to come out. And that can be within each day. And that can
Yeah,
be monthly, weekly. And it's not necessarily planned. It's just, oh,
yeah. I love what you said about the time too, because that was such a mental hurdle for me to overcome. Like, such a mental hurdle. Probably one of the biggest ones in the context of everything. This idea of if I don't have an hour and a half to work out and do the whole thing, then I'm just not going to move. And it's crazy because even all the research supports like 15 to 30 minutes of workout, like activity is so good for you. I have these amazing friends that own this clinic and they do all this super advanced kind of like biohacking and just really cool stuff. And he was talking about, he said one of the biggest foundational things is if you can just move for 15 minutes, it completely changes like leptin and ghrelin, which are hormones that have to do with like hunger, and it just, he's like, you will be healthier and you will have a more favorable body composition if you can just get that 15 minutes of movement in. But it's so easy for our minds to disregard like 15 minutes. That doesn't seem like
yes. And
enough.
it was a foreign thought to me because I hadn't looked at it like that. And that's what's beautiful, how much we don't know. And then when someone shares what was their holdup, I'm like, oh, okay, that's huge new perspective for me. And now you're resonating that as well. I didn't realize that people would look at that and be like, I can't do it because I don't have an hour and a half. We don't need an hour and a half. If we were all expected to have an hour and a half to devote to exercise every day to meet some standard of being physically fit, that's a huge hurdle to come through. And again, limiting. And I totally recommend breaking. So before our podcast, I was like, okay, I have 20 minutes. So I went around the block for 20 minutes and I unplugged so that I could be here and present. And that 20 minutes, that's all I'll have today at the moment to move my body. But that spark and those neuroreceptors and all the things that we can do for ourselves in those short spurts makes massive change throughout, and just to plug. And I have to look into your friend's space, but yes, our bodies, if we work at the computer all day, I really recommend just close that up, get outside, eat 10-15 minute breaks. If you're in an office, leave the lunchroom for 10-15 minutes. It changes the way you look at things.
So much.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I know mind, body, spirit, as
Yeah.
you were talking about. And I know when we first met, I think it came up because Danielle was sharing just working with me and like the gifts and all these things. And we ended up having this amazing conversation about astrology and human design and all of these kind of different systems, if you will, and you shared some really perspectives that were really interesting for me as well about how that can feel maybe not welcome. I would love to hear your words on it, but maybe not welcoming. And I know that some of that stuff had been presented to you in a very limiting way, and I'd just love to have a conversation about
Okay.
that.
Yes, I love that. So it's like you being a change maker. I'm been very in touch with energy in myself, with other people. I'm always curious, not an expert. And astrology growing up, I knew my sign. That's about all I knew.
Yeah.
I read the characteristics. I'm like, oh, that sounds like me. And I'm like, I don't know where we come up with all this. That's me. But we do like to feel some of those things. I don't know. It's warm and welcoming when we're like, oh, that's me. I recognize that. And for myself anyways, and now it's evolved. I love that there's the body mind soul and the body mind spirit. There's so much soul work going on and energy work, and people I believe are really more and more opening up to that and weaving that in and out of their own lives and their own practices and their work. Yet I was like, okay, the language, that's what it was. It's like the jargon around it. And if I'm
Yeah.
not an expert, and when someone fires at me, I was born in the moon and it was in this sign at this time and this, then I'm overwhelmed. And it's, if I were, I don't know what I'd be rhyming, but maybe something from the gym. But I always say I have weird, fun knowledge about gym that sometimes that's useless information. But when someone rhymes that really quick and they're like, and you're this, and I'm like, I don't know if that's good or bad. And and some of the delivery may sound like there's a hierarchy, that's what it was, in
Yeah. Yes. I remember you saying
and
that.
I'm like, oh, do I want to? So if I were at the gym and I'm like, I want to be able to, again, no pain, no gain. I want to be at the top. So I want to be at the top of whatever these systems are. And you were like, no, that's not it. So you were breaking it down for me. So I was just curious, like, how do I use that information, understand that information, and feel that I can come in and be like, it's okay to be whatever the signs are. If I'm a rejector, if I'm a, all those,
Yeah.
that's what it was. Yeah.
I love that. And I love this question so much. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about this. And I think I'll say too, when you talk about people opening up to it, like I really had to open up to this. When I first
Oh,
started on this journey, I was like, I'm only interested in what the science can prove. I don't want anything woo. I did this clinical hypnotherapy training, and there were people, whenever people were in there, they were spiritual. I was like, no, none of that's nonsense. I just want the mind stuff. And it was, yeah, and it was through this observation and very results focused practice that I ended up being me, which is all about the energy, all about using my intuition. People come in and I read them and I pick up on things that they haven't talked about in 20 years, but they're still holding energetically. And that's become what people literally seek me out for the gift, like not
yes.
even for all this
I'm like
training.
through right now to come get it,
It's
right? That's why I'm
crazy.
here.
Yeah, it's crazy. But so I will say that, like, it really has been a journey. I also was I just thought astrology and all these different things were kind of nonsense. Really, the one that cracked the door open for me was human design, because it was at this time in my life where I was journaling. I was really trying to take this self-inventory because I was trying to understand if this career change that I was making was the right thing. And so I was really doing this kind of self-inventory of like my skills and how do I operate as a being. And human design was introduced to me at that time. And when I was just rolled my eyes at it, and someone did my profile, and it was like you had taken this like really detailed journal entries that I had been doing and put it there. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And what I love about all of these systems is they're very archetypal, right? And so with the archetype comes incredible coaching, incredible guidance. And so it's not about, to me, it's not about defining yourself and putting yourself in a box in any way. It's about understanding the archetypes that exist within you and understanding all of the guidance that comes with it. And the thing with, I know when you say the thing about the hierarchical thing with astrology, is that we're all of them. Like when you understand it, we are all the 12 archetypes, and we all have them show up in our life in different ways. And so it's okay, when this energy is showing up in your life, this is the gift and this is the shadow. And there's all of this guidance around that and how to get out of the shadow and how to access the gift. And so instead of being like, oh, you're an Aries, you're an asshole, it's no. There's this, right? There's this part that can be very domineering, but then there's also this part that leads into leadership. And so if you can understand that part within yourself, and again, we all have all the parts, it's just the guidance is already there, and it's profound. And I'll just maybe a little bit progressive, but I'm the first to say this, like I would take astrology and human design archetypes like really deep, not surface like in the newspaper, like
Yeah.
you're a Cancer, like this is going to happen today, but like really deep understanding of those archetypes has been more valuable to me than any psychological framework that I've ever learned.
Because it's about, for me, what you just said, like understanding ourselves, that you looked at and you're like, aha, like if that was your aha and that you can share that gift, like you are cracking codes. I love this.
Yeah, and I just think too, you also don't have to take on anything that you don't have resonance with, right? And so if there's
Yeah.
something that's presented to you in a way, or there's a system, or there's something, and you're like, oh, that part's not really me, then it's not about, I mean, I think there's an invitation to self-reflect and go, am I denying a part of myself, or have I been living so out of alignment that I don't recognize that? But I think when we get back to that truth and that inner knowing that we're talking about, if you go, this piece doesn't resonate with me, then don't take it. It's not, but it's just, yeah, I think it's really, you know what it's like? It's like having a cheat sheet. That's what it feels
Mhm.
like.
Ooh, I like,
Because instead of figuring out like, oh, I have this thing, and sometimes I get frustrated and I don't know why this happens, and just seeing it as an isolated thing, when you understand like an archetype or a pattern that it relates to, you can immediately understand the rest of the pattern and be like, oh, isn't just me. That human is the only person that has this problem. This is actually a thing that exists within human consciousness that's being expressed through me. And now that I understand what it is, I can shift out of this presentation of it into this presentation of it. And that's where, for me, the Eastern approaches, which I would umbrella all of this under, are have a lot more resonance, is that they never look at things as being good or bad or like things that need to be fixed. It's everything just has a different expression. There's a shadow expression and a gift expression of everything, just like us. There's a
Yeah.
shadow expression of Michael and there's a gift expression of Michael. There's a shadow
Yes.
expression of Deirdre and they should be shocked
Big
by that.
time. Oh, I love that. Yeah. I was like, I actually, my nickname is Baby Shadow from my dad because I do have a pretty dark side. It's almost the other half of me. And it's like
Yeah.
embracing those sides of ourselves. Um, Oh, I love what you just said because I was listening to something on my walk and it was about, again, tying in with what you're saying, what I'm hearing is that we are born perfect.
Yeah.
And in that, I've always said, I'm imperfectly perfect. You're imperfectly perfect. We're all perfect, but we have all these things that get slapped on us and stuck on us. And then we're like, oh, I'm this, I'm that. And they said this and they said that. And oh, and then we take it on and we start believing if we read it and we heard it. And it's, but why did we take those things on? And take a moment to, what you just said, if it doesn't resonate, let's release it. What and why we're hanging on to things. But so twofold, something that you said, I like made me think about that is just when we want to be our highest self, it's about like we can read all that, we can hear all of that, but we get to step forward how we see best.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you've touched on this a couple of times. I think this is so important. The labels that we take on for ourselves impact us hugely. We have to conform to identity words that we give ourselves. So I am a teacher, I am a mother, I am a
Mm-hmm.
victim, whatever. And one of my mentors Marissa Peer used to say, the words that follow I am follow you. So if you say, I am this, like you start to become that. And so with all of this stuff, if we can feel energetically the difference between finding something out or taking on a label and putting ourselves in that box, because a lot of times that's what we do. We go, oh, I'm a manager now. And so I'm going to put
Mm-hmm.
myself in this box. And the parts of me that are not a manager now have to be squished into that. Or I'm a Libra. Oh, I do this. And so I'm going to try and squish in that box, but we can never be fully expressed. And energetically, what it feels like to me, and when we come back to this true essence of who we are, it's more, can we be expanded by all that we are? It's like
Mm-hmm.
me, the truth, this true essence of who I am, that is who I was when I came into the world, like you said. But can I be, oh, I'm a CEO now, let me be expanded by that. Oh, I'm a mother now, let me be, I'm not limited by that. I'm expanded by that. Oh, I just found out that I'm a projector or a Cancer or whatever. Let me expand into the understanding of that and let me be expanded by all that I am and live in this full bandwidth of all that I am rather than shrink to meet the
Yes.
labels.
Okay, I need to breathe when you say that. Let's expand, like literally, you made me just want to take a huge, big gulp of air and expand. And I love everything you said. So that you broke that down for me when we talked, right? So it's, oh, I'm a generator or I'm this. And you're like, no, you're all of the things, but your tendencies could be this, and you'll be strength in these moments. And this might be challenging for you. And it helps you because if you understand yourself better, the more we know ourselves, the better then we can be in our best self. So awareness, that's power versus it being taking our powers, like giving you power when you have a vast understanding.
Yeah, and you just reminded me of one of the favorite things, and
Ooh.
Danielle and I talk about this too, is it's there's often like a permission slip given. And it's, so this is your thing, and so you're likely like this. And so is that true? And I remember speaking to you and you being like, yes, absolutely. And so a big part of all this stuff is deconditioning, because in society we're just all given the same advice. And so I believe you're a manifesting generator. Is that
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so one of the biggest things to break out of is People often get this advice as you should focus on one thing and you need to focus on one thing, you need to focus on finishing one thing. But that's not true for you. You're actually meant to have many things on the go and to not finish all of them and to just have all these
Love
different. And I
it.
remember when, yeah, I know when I remember when you said that and you were
Yeah.
just like, oh my God, I'm set free by that.
You should see my desk in front of me right now, all the
Yeah,
things.
but there's such a permission slip in that, right?
Yes.
Like I'm a projector and I used to say to my friends, I just feel like I don't have the same amount of energy as other people. And then that's the whole thing with projectors is we're supposed to rest. We're supposed to work like 4 hours a day. We really see people and see, so our gift is to be like guides, coaches, mentors, like different kinds of leaders, but then to just we basically have to be so nourished in our own energy because that's actually the thing. And it was like this permission slip to be like, okay, I don't have to feel like I'm lazy or whatever. This is actually how I operate. And same thing with like my North Node is in Aries. So it's like North Node, South Node is what energy you move towards and move away from. And so Libra is the scales is very like interrelationally balanced. So very like taking other people's feelings into account and stuff. Whereas like Aries is the leader. So Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. Aries goes first. And so the deconditioning with that is like when people say like you don't want to be too bold or you don't want to ruffle too many feathers, you want to really be considerate of others, they go that guidance isn't for you. You're actually meant to go first. You're actually
Nice.
meant to stand out. You're actually meant to still trailblaze. And that was
Mm.
such a big thing for me because I could feel that in my soul and I would start to do that and I would get backlash and then I would get in my head about it and be like, am I being too this or am I being too that? And it was like when I had that read for me and someone was like, no, you are literally meant in this lifetime to be a leader and
Mhm.
to ruffle feathers. And it was just like, I can feel this in my body as I talk about it. It was just like, okay,
And you
I
just
was
took
like,
me
I'm
back to
free.
your dance audition. They shared with me, right? Like you came to a dance audition and you I loved that story that you shared with me. It's like you came to the dance to it and you blew it up. And it was like you were a little to this, but that's you and you're like not conforming and you're not. I love everything about like you just come in and we need people to light the way.
Yeah.
And if we're all sitting, don't be too this, don't be too that. We're all sitting in this quiet little box, hushed. And it's no, we need somebody to ruffle the feathers. And who better? Michael.
I love it. I love it. Remind me the story about the dance audition.
You went for a dance audition somewhere abroad, and your creative side is so expressive, and they were like they loved it, and it just was one level, probably beyond what they were accustomed to. And you were even bringing it in containment, I think. What was the audition for? I feel like you were in Ireland or somewhere. Does this ring a bell?
Probably like Australia or something. Yeah.
Australia, and there was
Yeah.
like the table watching you, and
Oh my God. I know you're talking about. Yes. Yes. Totally.
like,
Yeah. It
you
was
ruffled some feathers.
when they thought I was too sexy. Yeah.
Yes, this is you ruffled feathers. I'm too sexy.
I was
It's
so
fine.
funny. So I had the honor of being asked to present my work to, I can't remember what the board is called now, but basically one of the governing bodies of dance in Australia, they were rewriting their syllabus and they were bringing in choreographers to redo the work. And so I was asked to come in and I presented my contemporary work and they loved it. I actually got chosen, which was a huge honor. And so I helped them rewrite that syllabus. And they had said, oh, we're doing Broadway jazz if you want to put something together as well. So I did the contemporary first and they were all like, I think it's a yes. Like they basically just decided and then they said Broadway jazz. And I was like, okay, Broadway jazz. And I think I picked like Michael Bublé or something. And so it was very like me and pictures and like little moments. And I finished and it was this panel of 15 older like white haired ladies because that's who runs dance board. And there was silence and it was really awkward. And I was like, oh, and they murmured amongst themselves, and one lady goes, you were a bit sexy. And I was like, oh, I went red. And I was like, oh. And she was like, some other lady, she was like, you were very sexy.
Very, it's a compliment. I'm very.
It was so funny.
You said ruffle feathers, and I went there. That's where I
That,
went.
I love that you thought of that. I
Yeah.
love that. I never talk. People are always like, you should tell more stories about your dance days. But it was such a funny moment. And I remember being embarrassed, but then afterwards being like, oh, for God's sakes, you guys are being too prude. You know what I mean? Have you ever
And
been to a Broadway show?
yeah, and again, it's I don't know. Everything you were saying before I took us there was being free.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you just had a post that was like about being free. And when we are in how do we feel our best? When we feel free to be ourselves.
I love that you took it there. And that's it. I actually just felt that in my body when you said that, because that's it, right? It's what if instead of, and I think this is a through line in both of our work, it's what if instead of feeling like I have to be the opposite of how I am, what if I just learn to work with myself? What if I just learn to work in alignment with how I operate as a body, as a being, as a spirit, all the things. Yeah. Like I
Included our shadow.
yeah. And but like it's like our shadow, but it's I think sometimes it's so much less work than we think it is. Like I look at
Yes.
being back on like a health thing to bring it full circle that I'm aligned with. I work out. I'm probably doing I do lots of like daily walks and stuff with my dogs, but like in terms of going to the gym, I probably just go 3 days a week right now. And I eat in a way that feels so good. And I've lost 10 pounds since I saw it. And it's been effortless. And it
I
feels
can
so
see you.
good.
I can see you. Oh my gosh, there's so many like pings. I see it. I see the change. It doesn't have to feel like we're forcing it. If we're forcing anything, we have to question that. So
Yeah.
there's a fine line with challenging ourselves and not challenging ourselves, but what feels good to you right now? Walking the 3 times a week, eating food that feels good for you. And there's back to the intuition. And there was one thing that I did want to bring up is that when we release that expectation and we just flow, things come easier. So I have to work out for an hour and a half. I have to work out 5 times a week. I have to eat that plate because that's what someone told me to, versus doing what feels right for you. And now your body's thank you and responding. And I just wanted to plug like release versus lose. Releasing, it's gone. When we lose, we look for it. If I
Yeah.
lost my keys, I'll go find them. But when we release, we've let go.
I love that. I love that. Release. Oh, I see what you're saying about the weight and releasing that and
Yes.
release. Oh, I love that. And we're just
Yeah.
releasing. It's gone.
And it's energy and we let it go.
Totally. I just realized we can pull some of this evidence up for me because, okay, I'll tell you one of the things that I do with my people is we map out energetically and frequency wise who they are in the version that they're calibrating to. And we actually do this very much financially because a lot of when we shift is reflected in money. That's a whole thing. But when we do that, we use money as a barometer, even though it's not really about the money, to map out this next level self. And so a part of that exercise is people getting into this headspace of, okay, I'm making this much. What does my life look like? And I'll tell you one of the number one things people say is their mornings tend to be very different. They tend to be a lot less busy. They're waking up, drinking coffee, watching the sunset, and then they're taking care of their bodies. Like people always say, I'd go to the gym, I'd be eating differently or whatever. And so my advice through the frequency and energy work that I do is you have to start doing that now. And I'll look at people who feel like have a business and they feel like everything's on fire and they're constantly putting out fires and they're just barely making ends meet. And they're like, you're insane. You want me to take 2 hours or whatever in the morning for my me time and my peace and
Yes.
to take care of myself. I'm like, yes, because you can already see in your mind's eye this version of yourself that you imagine yourself to be when you're free. That's who you behave. So you have to start living now. And like the level of insanity that people look at me with, especially when they're coming from not having been in this kind of energetic world for a long time, they look at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, you have to do what I say. I know
Oh,
that this works. And I
yes.
cannot tell you how many people I have that interaction with. And then within a couple of months, they're messaging me being like, I'm free.
Yes. Oh,
Like
I feel
my money problems have
it. Mhm.
eased. Like we're out of survival. We're out of
Yes.
survival.
Yes.
We're out of survival. And so what I think, obviously from this frequency perspective, but what I think is amazing is that you were sharing, and this is why I wanted to bring it up because I really want to hit this home for people that are listening
Yes.
and the people in my
Oh my
work.
gosh, because I'm like right here. This is you and I like in sync.
Because you're having the same experience through the
Mhm.
work that you're doing.
Yes. We're overdoing our things and we're noticing and observing this and recommending similar things in our own little wheelhouses, big wheelhouses.
Yeah.
But absolutely, some of my clients that are coming forward and they're grinding, and I didn't have enough time to work out grinding. It's futile. We don't need to be sitting at a desk for 8 to 10 hours, tapping, banging, racking our brains. It's that release. So creating that space gives us the energy and the space to do more, and that releasing and that stranglehold over all the things and feeling that tension versus let it flow, creating the morning routine, knowing that it's coming, and that work that's done on the mat, on the walk, sipping the coffee, that is the work. And then that folds over. And when you said about the 4 hours, I want to come even hit home to that, because I think we're both dealing with thinking that imagine an 8 hour day. I can't even imagine like sitting in one space, right? Because it's not productive. It's so silly. Like what
I
we're
know.
doing. So freedom is the key. And in the freedom, it's in that freedom that we can be creative, dig into our passions and light back up. And then how we come forward is so beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. And but it's also it's like I love what you said about the 8 hour workday, because the version of me when I'm living my best life, my 4 hours of work is hella
Yes.
productive, focused. And the stuff that I do, like and I remember it's after I had been an entrepreneur for a while, I had this brief moment of insanity where I tried to have a regular job quite a few years ago now. And I remember exactly what you're saying, being so frustrated. We had to be there from 9 to 5, I think it was actually 8 to 4, but we would arrive and people would get coffee and then we just like, and no one would really work until like 10:30. And then we only really got 4 hours of work done anyways. And I was like, this is stupid. We could all come in at 10, have our mornings, really focus, and then get out of here. And everyone's quality of life would be so much better,
So much
instead
better.
of forcing ourselves to just sit here and to be honest, I just want to also that's actually not alignment for everyone. There are some people that like love to go, and that's actually freedom for them. And so it's not about everyone has to like live
That
this
was the
very
same
life.
thing. Like I can't imagine, but bringing in, we're all built different and we all run different.
Yeah.
But that activity, what works for you is not the same for the next.
Yeah.
I love that you brought that back, because yeah, I might chip away at a 10-hour day in different windows, but it's not sitting in one space for that period of time. And everyone's going to function at a higher point. Their frequency is going to be different. Like it's like chunks of time. And how do you spread that out?
Totally. And just freedom is so personal. One of my favorite mentors said this thing to me, Melanie. She said, not doing something that I want to do in the name of freedom isn't freedom. And I love that so
Wow.
much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Aw.
So good. So this has been so good. Any final
So,
thoughts you want to leave us with?
oh, I feel like there were little sparks that I was thinking about, and I feel like they're coming in. Freedom, huge piece. Freedom, and what does that look like? And I love that you help your clients design their best life and give them that space to sit in the morning for 2 hours, and they see that, and that it involves health. And I think, what is the point of all this if we aren't healthy to enjoy it?
Totally.
And what that looks like for every person. I feel like I don't know. I feel like we hit some
Amazing.
good ones.
Yeah. We might have to do another conversation. It's so good.
Okay.
Good. I'm actually in Ontario later in October, so hopefully we'll see each other again.
Okay.
Yeah. Amazing. And where can people find you?
I am Deirdre_S Fitness on Instagram and DeirdreSlatteryFitness.com. I can send the links
Oh
to
yeah,
you.
and we'll have all your links
All
below
the
in the show
things.
notes too.
Just,
Perfect.
yeah, I would love to follow up and see you in October. And thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. I love this conversation. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your magic with us. Amazing. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone. We're sending you
Thank
so
you.
much love, and bye for now.
Bye.